Over recent years, schools and institutions throughout the United States have chosen to break away from their non inclusive, binary centered mindsets in efforts to be more inclusive towards the gender identities and expressions of their students. This increase in compassion is a direct result of the discrimination, harassment, and prejudice that people who identify as non binary or gender nonconforming face in today's society. The theme that is at the forefront of this movement is pronoun use. Pronoun use within the non-binary community is a topic that is growing in prevalence in our current school climate. With more students than ever identifying as non-binary, there is a growing concern for how they should be addressed and referenced. First-time introductions serve as a major source of anxiety for students within the LGBTQA community due to the fear of potentially being outed by either a fellow classmate or even a new teacher at the beginning of the year. For the average person, first impressions are of high importance and introductions are never easy. This same issue is undesirably revisited and heightened throughout a non-binary student's academic career at the start of each new semester with each new introduction. Imagine having to explain to a new teacher that you do not use the name that was just announced for attendance and your pronouns do not reflect the body that you currently live in. Congratulations, you have now been outed to your entire class, whether you like it or not. The movement for more inclusive language is not a development exclusive to just the United States. LGBTQA advocates throughout the world have successfully promoted the addition of gender-neutral pronouns into their own languages. There are many languages in our world that do not recognize gender, so the need for pronouns is obsolete. However, in gendered languages like English and Spanish, non-binary students often run the risk of being misgendered. Living in the current state of our society, with minimal discourse on the importance of pronoun use, lives many in the non-binary community feeling abandoned. They are being told that their gender identity is not worthy of acknowledgement since they are considered minorities. A study done through the University of California, Berkeley explored the ways in which non-binary students experience minority stress. The researchers looked into how minority stress directly affects the mental health of the students. According to the Center for Community Practice, minority stress is defined as the additional stress that members of marginalized communities experience due to the prejudice and discrimination that they face on a regular basis. Non-binary students experience a type of minority stress called invalidation, when their identities are not accepted as real by others. This displays through functions like self-doubt, confusion, and internalized shame, which ultimately result in further isolation. Every child has an inalienable right to safety, support, and belonging, regardless of their gender identity. It is imperative that schools recognize their responsibility to ensure the protection of that right for all students. By acknowledging pronouns and the use of gender-inclusive vocabulary, students not only see that they belong in the classroom, but they are also reassured that it is okay to be themselves. This has astounding effects on a student both socially and academically. School counselors play an integral role by serving as the liaison between the student body and faculty. Counselors are able to bridge the inclusion gap by listening to the struggles of the students and then educating the faculty to alleviate any further problems. By asking students which pronouns they prefer and then using them correctly, a counselor is making strides in establishing a non-binary friendly environment. Even though the conversation might not be easy to broach, it is still a useful practice to normalize acknowledging pronouns. School counselors are a great source of advocacy for students to be accepted. Advocacy for the students is often done through the training of staff on inclusive practices that will in turn create an affirming school environment for all. In order to successfully achieve an accepting school environment for all non-binary students, school counselors should educate faculty and staff on key approaches for cultivating inclusion within their own classrooms. These approaches include modeling how to introduce oneself with preferred pronouns, even if identifying as cisgender, in addition to promoting regulations that successfully minimize the use of offensive language towards marginalized communities. There needs to be a dialogue on how to empower non-binary students to confidently share their pronouns. This is attainable through the unification of both counselors' competencies and education of school figures, all together working towards the welfare and inclusion of non-binary students.